I'm Scott Lucas. I'm professor of U.S. and International Politics at the Clinton Institute at University College Dublin. I'm the founder and editor of EA Worldview, which is a news and analysis site on international affairs, and I am the curator of the U.S.-Ireland portal on Bertelsmann's Transatlantic Periscope. The greatest threat to transatlantic security starts with the dissolution, or at least the threatened dissolution, of the international rules-based order since 1945. That rules-based order, in terms of law, in terms of security, in terms of diplomacy, is specifically threatened because for the first time since 1941, we do not have an alliance between the U.S. government and European partners. That's because of the approach taken by the Trump administration and by Donald Trump himself. Now, in the absence of that alliance, one cannot make assumptions about the planning for European security. You cannot assume that American officials or even American agencies will necessarily be on board. So that means there has to be a reevaluation, both through organizations such as NATO, but also in terms of cooperation between European countries, about how you try to arrange for that security, how to arrange for that rules-based order, beginning with Europe, but also reaching out to other countries, say, for example, Canada, Japan, Australia, in other parts of the world. Capacity is what you're potentially able to do. Military capability is what you can do. And that is now a vital question because of the position we're in with Ukraine's defense against Russia. The United States has the greatest military capability in the world. Its defense budget is 10 times that of the largest European defense budget, which is Germany, which is only at around $85 to $90 billion. But the Trump administration is walking away from European security, and specifically Ukrainian security. Now, European countries, including under the European Union and through NATO, have a good deal of capacity that they could begin to deploy. And indeed, as I speak to you, we just had the decision by Germany, a historic decision, to release the debt brake, which could free up to 1 trillion euros for infrastructure and for defense production. But it takes time to convert capacity into capability. So what you have seen, especially in the last 3 weeks, is almost a historic shift by European countries to recognize they can no longer rely upon American capabilities. They must develop their own, not only within Europe, but also in partnership with other countries such as Canada, such as Australia, for an approach to global security that does not depend on whether or not the United States is participating. There are various levels in terms of European defense. Quite often that question has revolved around whether or not you have a European defense force, a European army. But I think that's been overtaken, including by the report, which is this question of capacity versus capabilities. There is a recognition that Europe has to step up in terms of production. It has to step up in terms of an approach which brings in both public and private interest into that production. It then has to coordinate that production across countries. You can't just look at this as being national capacities, national capabilities. You have got to be able to integrate this clearly through something like NATO, but also through European organizations. And I think, in a sense, that European Commission paper has now been advanced in a very real sense with Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission president, who said only earlier this month that there must be a target of 800 billion euros for defense investment in production, and that you have to find both the public and the private instruments to be able to hit that target. And again, the German decision to release the debt brake is going to be part of that. But other countries as well are going to have to reevaluate the percentage of their economy which is devoted to defense. And I think they are going to have to increase it, at least in the near future. going to be blunt with viewers, and that is until we have a change of administration in the United States, we do not have a future in transatlantic defense cooperation, at least at a government-to-government level. That's true not just because of the current president, Mr. Trump, it's because of his vice president, Mr. Vance, and his defense secretary, Mr. Hegseth, both of whom said last month at the Munich Security Conference they saw no need for cooperation with Europe. So if you cannot have that type of transatlantic cooperation, where is the future? Well, you have to develop the cooperation from within Europe to start off with. And then you have to build up and reach out to other countries. And I think, personally, I think Canada, in terms not only of its military links, but also its economic links, is going to go through a historic shift in the next few years. We're already beginning to see it. We're beginning to see the Canadians speak much more directly with Europeans about economic arrangements. That's in part because of the threat of Trump's tariffs, but it's also in terms of Canada increasing its own defense forces without having to rely on the United States. NATO will continue. NATO will not be broken apart even with the Trump administration shift. And at this point, the American military remain in NATO. We haven't reached that point yet.